It's a kid's cartoon. Bright colors, bubbly music,
So just listen now to my musical doodle.
silly sea creatures.
We're brothers now.
But something in this SpongeBob scene feels off. The laughter's there, the slapstick is there, but underneath it all, something's wrong. Too wrong for Nickelodeon. And once you see why these episodes were banned, you'll never look at SpongeBob the same way again. For most kids, SpongeBob meant harmless Saturday morning fun. But hidden among the goofy adventures were episodes that went darker. Aging, paranoia, sickness, even twisted humor that didn't belong in a children's show. Nickelodeon eventually pulled them, locking them away like secrets they didn't want remembered. One shows just how far Mr. Krabs would go to deny his age. Another traps the Krusty Krab crew during a fake pandemic, paranoia ripping them apart. Both start silly, and both end somewhere no SpongeBob episode should. The story begins with Mr. Krabs, the greedy, money-obsessed crab who usually feels untouchable. But this time, something feels different. The Krusty Krab looks older, dustier, and so does Krabs himself. That morning, the weight of time finally hits him. He tries to brush it off, but when he asks his daughter Pearl, her answer shatters him. "Pearl, do you think I'm old?" "Of course I do, but that's okay. Daddies are supposed to be old." Her honesty cuts deeper than he expected. Suddenly, everything reminds him of his age. On his way to work, other fish treat him like a senior citizen. One snickers that he should get in line, "If you want to get buried." Another compares him to a stale Krabby Patty. Each jab chips away at him. Krabs isn't ready to surrender. He overhears SpongeBob and Patrick bragging about a wild night, and in that moment, he sees a way out. If he joins them, maybe he'll feel young again. So he asks to come along. Shocked, they agree, and that decision sets everything in motion. That night, SpongeBob shows up with what Krabs calls chick repellent, and the evening quickly spirals into awkwardness. The wild activities SpongeBob and Patrick promised, childish nonsense, silly games, goofy antics, things no adult would enjoy. Krabs forces a smile, but frustration builds until he storms off, humiliated. Patrick stops him with a single line. There's still one final activity left. And this is where the episode takes a dark turn. Patrick leans in, whispering like he's sharing a forbidden secret. "I guess you're going to miss the panty raid." Mr. Krabs freezes. "The what?" Patrick repeats proudly. "The panty raid." Up to this point, the episode had been silly, if a little off. But suddenly, SpongeBob and Patrick, characters defined by innocence, are planning to break into a woman's house and steal her underwear. It isn't a slapstick gag or food joke. It's an adult scenario shoved into a kid's show. Krabs, desperate to feel young, doesn't hesitate. He sneaks out with them. The three creep into a quiet house, open a drawer, and there it is, an innocent woman's underwear. Krabs grabs a pair and dances with them, thrilled like he's won some twisted prize. Then comes the horror. This isn't just anyone's home. It's his mother's. The underwear in his claws belongs to her. She wakes, catching her grown son in the act. Shame and humiliation crash over him, turning what was meant to be funny into one of the most disturbing reveals SpongeBob ever aired. And this is exactly why midlife crustacean was banned. It didn't just joke about something wildly inappropriate. It tied it to themes of aging, denial, and desperation. Instead of humor, the ending left viewers unsettled and Nickelodeon scrambling. But as bad as that was, the next banned episode didn't just deal with embarrassment, it locked every character inside the Krusty Krab, twisted paranoia into madness, and flirted with outright body horror. No one is allowed to leave. Not for 2 weeks. The doors slam shut, and the cheerful SpongeBob tone instantly flips into dread. Everyone panics. Even Plankton, hiding in disguise, tries to bolt, screaming, "Quarantine, quarantine!" But he's caught. The inspector's rule is final. Every single person is trapped inside. What makes this episode so disturbing is how fast paranoia spreads. Instead of sticking together, the characters turn on one another. Mr. Krabs is the worst. His fear twists into obsession. He declares that anyone sick will be locked inside the freezer, cut off from the group. The problem? No one admits to being sick, so Krabs decides they'll guess. First target, SpongeBob. With no proof, Krabs shoves him into the freezer. SpongeBob, ever oblivious, laughs and skates on the ice, but to everyone else, it looks terrifying. Patrick, wanting in on the fun, pretends to be infected too. Suddenly, it seems like the disease spread instantly. Panic skyrockets. One scratch on Squidward's hand, and Krabs tosses him in too. Then Mrs. Puff, then Pearl. One by one, he isolates them until only Krabs remains outside, convinced he's the last healthy one. Inside the freezer, the truth comes out. No one is actually sick. Patrick faked it. SpongeBob was fine all along, but Krabs doesn't care. Fear has consumed him, and he clings to control. The group breaks out furious, ready to confront him. What follows is one of the most violent clashes SpongeBob ever showed. Krabs lashes out, injuring Squidward and even SpongeBob in the chaos. The Krusty Krab turns into a war zone of shattered furniture and bruised bodies. Then, the inspector returns. His verdict: there was never an infection. The test was wrong. But by then, it's too late. The restaurant is destroyed. The crew is battered and broken. Worse than if they'd actually been sick. Instead of setting them free, the inspector panics and orders an ultra-mega quarantine. The doors lock again, and dread lingers. This is why Quarantined Krab was banned. It wasn't just about germs, it was about paranoia consuming friends until they brutalize each other. And because it aired during the height of a real-world pandemic, Nickelodeon yanked it almost instantly. Together with Midlife Crustacean, the pattern is clear. These weren't silly accidents. They pushed SpongeBob into territory far darker than anyone expected, and left fans with images they'll never forget. Quarantined Krab did something even stranger. It took SpongeBob's usual fast-paced energy and twisted it into something closer to a horror film. The bright setting of the Krusty Krab became a cage, its characters paranoid prisoners. What started as a joke about infection ended with violence, betrayal, and physical harm, all themes SpongeBob had always avoided. By the time it was over, the characters looked less like lovable sea creatures and more like survivors of something traumatic. And maybe that's the real reason both episodes were banned. They weren't just too edgy for kids. They peeled back the cheerful mask of SpongeBob and showed us something that felt uncomfortably real. Aging isn't funny when it's tied to humiliation. Quarantine isn't entertaining when it echoes real panic. For kids, these episodes were confusing. For adults, they were disturbing. For Nickelodeon, they were liabilities. But here's the thing. Banned or not, fans never forget. These episodes live on through clips, memories, and whispers online. They fuel theories, debates, and that lingering question: how far should a children's cartoon go before it stops being funny? And maybe that's why they still hold power. Because the darkest SpongeBob episodes weren't lost by accident, they were erased on purpose. And knowing that makes them even harder to ignore. So next time you think of SpongeBob as pure harmless fun, remember this. Beneath the surface of Bikini Bottom are stories Nickelodeon didn't want you to see. Stories that turned laughter into dread. And stories that left viewers haunted long after the screen went dark. So, what do we take away from SpongeBob's banned episodes? On the surface, they were just two outliers in a massive library of goofy, lighthearted fun. But look closer, and they reveal the thin line SpongeBob sometimes crossed, where humor turned into humiliation and silliness turned into fear. Midlife Crustacean showed us that denial of age and desperation for youth can lead to choices so reckless they leave nothing but shame behind. Quarantined Krab trapped us in a room where paranoia, mistrust, and violence became the punchlines. Neither of these stories felt like the SpongeBob fans grew up loving, and maybe that's why they were erased. But the fact that they were banned only makes them more legendary. Because the darker the memory, the harder it is to forget. And when you hear about episodes that Nickelodeon tried to bury, you can't help but wonder, how many more scripts like this exist? How many more stories were written, then locked away, never meant to reach the surface? That's the lingering dread. Not just what we saw, but what we didn't. And if you've stuck with me this far, here's where I want to hear from you. Which SpongeBob episodes do you think went too far? Which moments made you stop laughing and start wondering why it even aired in the first place? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading them all. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the darker side of SpongeBob, make sure you subscribe, because there are more banned, lost, and forgotten cartoon episodes out there, and we're just getting started. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and never look at Bikini Bottom the same way again.
Hey, mister, could you throw the ball back over here?
Hey, how's about I join you kids?